Well, it's good to be with you this morning as we begin a new Bible study here by the name of Peace. My name is Kevin Young. I have the privilege of serving as lead clergy at Christ Table. If you'd like to find out more about Christ Table, you can visit that URL right up there, www.christstable.today. I would encourage you there to sign up for our email list so that you'll know all of the things that are happening in this study, as well as around Christ Table. Now, if you'd like to know more about this study in particular, this website right there at the bottom of your screen, go.christstable.today/peace, will give you all of the information on the study. There's a schedule to let you know all of the readings and all the days to be a part of the peace study. And also we have a copy of this printed guide right there as well. go.christstable.today/peace. You can download this electronically. The whole thing's in there. We give it away for free. If you'd like a printed copy alongside a lot of other resources right there at that URL, you can get the spiritual resource box that has all of that material in there in hard, handheld. You can hold it, you can draw on it, all of that. And so I encourage you actually with this study to consider doing that rather than just downloading the PDF. But feel free to download the PDF if that's the way you'd rather go. But we do appreciate your donations. It helps us to do what we do around Christ Table here. Now, today we find ourselves in Romans chapter 12, verses 16 through 20. And what we're going to do as we go through this study is we're going to look at places in the Bible that talk about peace. I feel like this is a very critical time in at least U.S. America to focus on peace, because there is lots of tension, lots of chaos, lots of worry, and lots of fear surrounding what's coming up in November. And so maybe it might be a great idea for people who are followers of Jesus, or people who are on the fringes or on the margins, oppressed, marginalized people. Really all of us, I guess, could utilize some conversations and some internal peace. And maybe that will spill over into our communities, into our practices, into our voting, into our churches, and into all of the things around us as well, so that we might become a more peaceful people. Why don't we go ahead and jump into today's text? All of these texts you're going to find are relatively easy, relatively simple texts. They should be no-brainers, right? But it can be most difficult for us to do the most simplest things, right? Romans chapter 12, verses 16 through 20. Live in harmony with each other. This is the Apostle Paul talking to the church at Rome. Live in harmony with each other. Now, he's talking specifically to Christians here. He's not really talking to an unsaved world. He's talking to Christians, and actually Christians, as well as Jewish people were in some ways, there was some tension there between them, and in Rome, they were living in a place of tension as well between them and the unbelievers. But Paul's saying specifically to the Christians, to the followers of Christ, hey, you need to live in harmony with each other. Like, you don't just have problems living harmoniously with people who are unlike you. You all have problems living with people who are like you, living in harmony with people who share the same beliefs as you do, who have the same understanding of God as you do. And that's just problematic. 2,000 years later, I think Paul would be writing the same letter to Christians today saying, y'all, come on, find ways to get along, to live in harmony with each other. Harmony isn't melody. Harmony doesn't mean that everybody has to believe the same thing, has to be singing all the same notes, right? Harmony happens whenever everybody is taking their individual notes and their individual parts and singing them, and it's blending together well, and it's working together well. Y'all can be different, but you can do it in a way that is harmonious. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people. And I love this line. Paul might as well have written this line directly to me. And don't think you know it all. And isn't that something that defines who we are oftentimes as Christians? People who think we know it all, who believe we know it all. And going up to that, that first line right there, right? Live in harmony with each other. Even with other followers of Jesus, we tend to think we know it all, and it's part of what brings some of the arguing with each other and the misunderstandings with each other and the venom and the hate with even within other Christians is the fact that we have this need to be right. We kind of equate being right with being righteous, but and I say this fairly regularly, you can be righteous and not right. You can be living rightly, but or believing righteously, but not handling it in a right way, in a godly way. Paul continues, never pay back evil with more evil. You want to live in peace? De-escalate rather than escalate. Do things in such a way that everyone can see that you are honorable. And I want you to remember that line. We're going to come back to that. Do things in such a way that everyone can see that you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Now, Paul has broadened this out from just Christian relationships, but has said, this really is something that is important for the way that you live in your community, the way that you live in your neighborhood, the way that you engage and interact with your neighbors. Do everything that you can to live in peace with everyone. And Paul doesn't qualify this by saying, except maybe that person who votes opposite of you, or maybe that person who doesn't keep up their house in the way that they should, or that person who spends their money on things that you completely disagree with, or that person who speaks negatively about you unreasonably. Paul doesn't qualify it. Do all that you can, go as far as you can to live at peace with everyone. Dear friends, let me spell it out for you. Paul says, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. Let God take care of them. For the scriptures say, I will take revenge. I will pay them back, says the Lord. And then Paul now reaches back into the book of Proverbs and pulls this out from verse 20. If your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. And in doing this, you will heap burning coals of shame on their heads. Paul says, honestly, if you treat people well when they've treated you badly, you're going to find that more often than not, and that's what Proverbs is. It's not a promise that happens all the time, every time you do it. Proverbs is something that is kind of stereotypical, that is the way things most normally go. And that's what Paul says here, is whenever you surprise people with your generosity, with doing things that they would not have done, in doing this, you're going to heap burning coals of shame on their heads, and implying other people are going to see that. Paul says, if you are a follower of the way, if you are a follower of Jesus, then this idea of being a person who lives peacefully and creates peace should be something that marks who you are, who I am. And if it isn't, then you may need to go back to the drawing board, because you may not be living your faith rightly in the world as Christ has called you to live it. Peace should mark anyone who calls themselves a Christian. That's what Paul's saying here. Followers of Jesus, Paul says, and now we're referring back to that verse 18. Followers of Jesus, we're to do more than to avoid retaliation. Paul says that followers of Jesus must also do what is right in the eyes of everybody. This is kind of exactly what Paul says there in the original Greek. In fact, for a lot of folks who are Christians, this concept, this idea that you must do what's right in the eyes of everyone, even people who are non-Christians, who are looking at you, you have to do what's right in their eyes as well. A lot of Christians have so much difficulty with this that a lot of translations translate that verse differently in order to soften the blow of those words. We can't even do what's right in the eyes of other Christians. Who Who in their right mind? Who are you, Jesus, to expect us to also do what's right in the eyes of everybody, even people who don't follow you? How do they even know what's right if they're so wounded and drowning in sin that they can't see up from down? Paul says, doesn't matter. This is your call to live peacefully among people who may not be peaceful or peaceful towards you, or hold opinions on issues or politics or topics that are peaceful as well. Do what is right as much as you can, Paul says, and I think all of us can do more. This is the implication here. As much as you can, Paul says, do what is right in the eyes of everybody. Paul essentially says here to us that your actions, the way that you live, how you express your opinions, even the opinions that you hold, may have to be subverted to the opinions of the community in which you live in order to keep peace, in order to be seen as people of peace. This is countercultural in Christianity. For Christianity to willfully and willingly bend itself into silence, into acceptance of the situation, into loving without using our mouth to disagree, doing those things with people who may not be right in God's eyes. What Paul asks us to do here in order to create peace is incredibly difficult, which is why so many of us would rather simply rewrite the words that Paul says and Jesus says in order to allow us to act however the hell we want to act and treat people however we want to treat them. That's not Christianity. That may be the religion that Christianity has become, but that is not true Christianity. True Christianity is a religion, is a way of peace. And Paul and Jesus both put very deep stakes in the ground as to what that means if we're reading it truthfully in context. So today, our practice, and every one of these days, we're going to have a practice that comes as a part of our reading. Not a whole lot of questions to answer. In fact, there's only one question in the study guide for every single day, and it's not really a question. Most of the time, it is an activity for you to do. And so today's is to describe or draw 3 things that bring peace to your community. And if you are an artist, I would encourage you to, alongside the art that you put in there, some sort of a description. Stretch a different muscle. Now, if you're a writer or writing to you, describing something with words on paper is far easier in your mind than actually drawing. I'd actually encourage you to make an attempt at doodling or drawing, no matter how it looks. No one else is going to see these things. I'm not going to ask you to post them online or anything, but actively do something in response to this creativity. Stretch those muscles. Describe or draw 3 things that bring peace to your community. And just a reminder, if you would like to get these study materials, either electronically for free, or if you'd like to purchase the entire spiritual resource kit, you can do that by going to this URL, go.christstable.today/peace. Well, that's all that we have for today. Looking forward to being back with you tomorrow as we continue on the study. But until that time, happy reading.